Good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are pleased to have everyone here with us. I'm Anton Thayalan, the Chief Evangelist for Luminary Learning Solutions, and I will be the voice of the webinar this morning. We welcome you to a new and improved Season 3 of Reset and Go. In continuation with Saturdays are for Learning with Luminary, we present Revive and Thrive. As the saying goes, gear up and get your learning on. In today's segment of Revive and Thrive, we are discussing employer branding towards authenticity, a real exchange of experiences and validated ideas on which to leverage your success and truly thrive. Our subject matter experts, and we are honored to have them on the panel this morning, are Kaushalya Kotuwage, Group Head of Human Resources and Sustainability at JAT Holdings. And joining him is Niasha Carolis, Director HR Sustainability, Mass Kreeda, Mass Holdings. Steering the conversation this morning is Priyanganie Mushin, a trainer with Luminary Learning Solutions. On that note, diving right in, over to you, Priyanganie.
Thank you, Anton. Delighted to take over. I'm your host for the next 60 minutes on Revive and Thrive. Together with me is our subject expert panelists, Niasha Carolis and Kaushalya Kotuwage. Welcome and good day. And good day, everyone from around the globe and here in Sri Lanka as well. Well, today's session actually promises to be illuminating in true Luminary Learning Solutions style. What with such a loaded topic that speaks for itself? In the run-up to some of the prep reading that I did, a feature that caught my attention is that employer branding and authenticity goes together, much like love and marriage, horse and carriage. I'm not trying to be flippant here, but actually zone in and focus for the benefit of our audience and viewers, first of all, on the implications of authenticity in the workplace, which has a direct impact and correlation on employer branding. Employer branding is the compelling reason for why a candidate should want to come work for you over a competitor, and why an employee stays instead of being tempted by other offers. Makes sense that companies that want to do just that attract and keep the best talent, the creme de la creme of candidates, and turn them into dedicated long-term employees. We will also, in today's session, be looking at, in viewers' interest, to companies that want to make themselves known as interesting employers and to recruit prospective employees, explore the immediate future of employer branding through social media. So let's find out from Niasha and Kaushalya the what's and the how's that is required for an employer brand to be effective, to be the real deal. And by the real deal, I mean authentic as heck. So, Kaushalya, I know I haven't flipped a coin here, but can we go first? And would you like to tell us what is your understanding of authenticity?
Yeah, of course, this is kind of a good topic to talk about regarding the employer branding towards authenticity. As you said perfectly, employer branding and authenticity just go hand in hand. And it's like love and marriage. You can't love, you can have without the love, the marriage. So when it comes to authenticity, in general, basically you can tell the idea of being original and genuine, right? So this is the authenticity is the factor that your company's audience turn into the advocates, right? And at the same time, it evaluates your business, elevates your business about the competition by attracting the right talent pool. So when you're considering this authenticity, there are four main components. We call it at continuity, credibility, integrity, and symbolism. That is the basic theory of the authenticity. But if you take the authenticity, that's a link between brand reputation and the customer expectation and employee experiences. These are the four pillars that governs the authenticity, right? So brand is what you say and how you behave. The reputation is what others say, that the perception that they have on your brand. The customer's expectations and how your employees experience will pour into this authenticity, and that is authenticity that you have to maintain and being original and genuine when it related with employer branding. So if you take few generations like generation X, Y, and millennials, Z generations, mostly the millennials are more concerned on this authenticity. So those days we used to do a lot of employer brandings, but authenticity was not much. But these days, the millennials are more into authenticity, whether the employer branding, the perceptions are maintained properly or not. So as for me, that is the understanding of authenticity regarding the employer branding.
Okay, so Niasha, thank you, Kaushalya. Niasha, what's your take on it?
Well, I don't disagree with anything that Kaushalya has said so far. And I think the only thing that I would add, Priyanganie, is that yes, you can't really have a marriage without love, and generally if you're in love with someone, you'll end up getting married. But the sad truth is that we have a lot of loveless marriages around us. And when it comes to employer branding and authenticity also, there's often evidenced a gap, a gap between what are the collective experiences of the employees in the organization and what is it that we go and position ourselves as an organization to the outside world. And that is where the advocacy breaks down. Because if you want your employees to be your advocates, there should not be that gap. Of course, every organization must have aspirations, and I'm not saying that an employer brand to be authentic needs to be 100% fit to the reality today. No, I think we can be organizations on a journey to be something, to get somewhere. And an employer brand will consist not just of the culture and values of the organization, but also of its goals, its missions, its aspirations. That is definitely an element of the future. So there is room for stretching what we want our brand to be as an organization. But there cannot be a huge, disconnect between the reality that employees see and feel and experience every day and what is, perceived by the outside world as the employer brand. So I think as professionals in branding, in HR, as leaders, we have to be mindful and we have to constantly ask whichever organization we work for, is there a gap? Is there a gap? And what are we going to do about it? Because that can be a real point of discontentment, disengagement for existing employees. And no matter how many wonderful benefits you may promise future employees or potential employees, I can say from my experience that if, especially the new generation, as Kaushalya said, if employees out there don't feel a fit, it's not going to work. It's going to be a loveless marriage. It's going to be a short marriage. They're going to come in and walk out in a few months, and you are going to have wasted time and money doing those recruitments. So I think the difficult thing as professionals and leaders today in the world is for us to be, upfront and face up sometimes when there is a gap and say, let's do something about it, and if we all believe that, okay, that's a company thing, that's not really my thing, I'm happy, I'm happy with the values and I don't really care what is perceived outside, I think then the companies that we work for have no hope. We all contribute to that brand. And if we see that there's a gap, then we need to fix it. So that's my take on authenticity and employer branding.
Okay. All right. So entwined, but yet there are gaps. But then we also need to explore to find out, is authenticity important, the importance to its organization? Where is the evidence seen in the importance to the organization?
Kaushalya, you want to go first, or?
I will let.
Okay, so the importance to the organization from my point of view goes back to what I was saying earlier. It is to do with securing employees who have the right fit to the organization. We all want the best talent, right? And I'm starting from this premise not because I'm an HR professional, but because companies are its people, right? Whether we provide a service or a product or whatever it is, all that is done by the people that the company employs. And we all know about the importance of IQ and EQ, the importance of a holistic notion of well-being. It's not just about having the tools that we need to do our job. It's also about feeling engaged in the heart and the mind. If we want to be the best as a company, our people have to feel that. So for a company, the importance of authenticity in its brand, for me, comes down to attracting the right fit of people. We all want the best talent out there. There is no doubt about it. But I come from a place where I say, if I had to choose within 10 people and everyone was at a different level 1 to 10, 10 being the best, if I had to go with level 6, but knowing in my heart that that person is a great fit for the company, I will go with the level 6 candidate, because I know that he or she will gel and work with the company to get a supernatural performance collectively, then go with the level 12 candidate. Because we are not superstars or lone performers in companies. You know, we work for big companies, and companies need people to work together. It's about the collective output, not the individual output. And if we have talent inside our organizations that are fantastic in what they do, that are super performers, but they do not fit, they are going to cause a lot of strife for the organization, for the leadership, and for themselves, right? And it's going to have a knock-on impact on all the others in the organization. So the importance of authenticity for the organization, for me, comes primarily in that point. How do we ensure that when we onboard talent into our organization, they are the right fit for our organization? I think a lot of people, and maybe this is changing, but I think a lot of people are very flippant about fit, culture fit, personality fit. You know, there was a time, I think, where psychometric testing, etc., was really important. But even then, it was to see whether the personality traits went for the role, fit for the role. But I am talking about the personality traits and the values, the unspoken things, you know, the things that you don't see, the part of the iceberg below the water.
Very interesting. Yes, very interesting in that aspect. And I guess this is where Luminary Learning Solutions can probably come in to help out, to bring in that fit. Because, I mean, when you say it's a fit, it's also something that is perceived in the mind of the viewers as to, okay, what is this fit? We don't understand what this whole thing might be. But then again, I'm sure through their own experiences of who they are, what their talents are, what their leanings are, and what their skill sets are, they probably would have a clearer understanding. So again, with JAT Holdings, and you're working there, it doesn't mean that it's only through your company, but also in perspective of your own experiences, Kaushalya. Would you like to take on an aspect of how and why authenticity is so important to an organization?
Yeah, exactly. I agree with 100% with Niasha. The thing is, mainly those days when we are becoming HR professionals, we used to pick the best candidate. out of the candidate pool, talent pool. So that was the one myth, and then also one misleading part, that we were trained to pick up the best talent out of the candidate pool, where sometimes the personality would not match to work with the current environment. So I'm 100% with you, Niasha, on this matter, because when we are recruiting someone, when we are taking someone in, always we have to look as a HR professional, we have to look at the business sustainability as well, right? Mostly those days, the HR's role was to get the right person in, that's it. Not to look at the business exposure and how it sustain the period of time for the future betterments. So here, now when we are attracting a right candidate pool and when we are selecting the right fit, it not be the best employee that we are getting inside. We have to evaluate as professionals whether what is our culture inside our organization. So whatever the ABCD company that we are working for, we have to understand what is the correct culture that we are currently on. According to that, we have to take the right person in. Then only the authenticity can be in par with the employer branding also. The same time, when you are talking about employer branding authenticity, it's very important because it develops the trust and confidence of existing employees. So these employees are the communicators of our employer branding. So that is why the authenticity is more important, not to be the 100% as Niasha said, at least maybe 70%. That the exact word Niasha used is be mindful. That's the correct word. So you have to do, when you are doing employer branding, you can grab whatever the employer branding. You can look at the Google's employer branding, Coca-Cola. Those are the top pillars as per the research done by certain research platforms. Disney, PayPal, Coca-Cola, Google, Rolex. Those are having nice employer branding and they walk the talk. But if you grab those employer branding aspects and just embed into your company's DNA or just embed into your company's employer branding profile, you will lose the authentic part. So you need to understand the culture, what your company drives out, and then act accordingly. If you say, then now if we look at certain website of certain companies, I'm not criticizing. This is the reality in Sri Lanka. If you look at certain companies that employer branding videos, this is something where we practice in a common way, that we put out a video where our employees are happier. Some employees speak out loud that they have brought up to this level and they say we are happy. So this is the culture they explain. That is a basic common platform where we emphasize, where we showcase our employer branding to outside. But if you take that, some of the employees who represent that video may not be in the company when you are looking at the video. So that's the reality. So that evidence that the authenticity that they are performing might not, maybe there is certain reason that they have to leave out, but they might not be work out in a real case scenario. So that is why I'm telling the authenticity should be there in a percentage wise, where you have to be very mindful when you are doing the employer branding, and you need to address, even the authenticity is not there, you need to have a plan to reach that level within a certain period of time.
Okay. So I'd like to stay with you, Kaushalya, on the same thing that you spoke about. Would you be able to give us an idea of how authenticity is evidenced?
Yeah, if you take, so I gave one example where the videos, when we look at some company videos, the people are not there. So that is the evidence that we can give. The authenticity is not there in certain companies when it comes to the employer brandings. And when you look at the informal chats, informal gatherings, people used to talk about their companies, right? So when you talk to the people, you get to know that there is some mismatch, maybe with the personality or maybe with the company, that they are not right fitting. So that
but social media also does use a lot of storytelling, because it's a very, very powerful tool. Especially now, because everything is so virtual and people need to know And even cross-culturally, globally, that is something that they do use, and it is a very powerful tool that comes out in evidence to portray authenticity. So just as, how would you perceive it, Niasha, on your end of the spectrum?
I think the strongest piece of evidence of brand authenticity is how you see your employees advocate, as I said before, and as Kaushalya also said before. I think, you know, if your employees are engaged and they are true advocates of what your employer brand is, that means that it is authentic, right? But if you can sense when talking to people that there's a disconnect, that there is some disgruntlement, I mean, let's be honest here, there'll always be people who will never be happy with anything. Exactly. And there'll be people who are confused about their own values and what's important to them. So we have to bear that in mind. I'm talking about people, if you take an employee who has been with an organization for a while, who has, you know, who's a committed person, who works diligently and speaks both about the good side and the negative side of an organization, then you are evidencing authenticity. And they're not scared to do that at whatever level that they are in the organization. Because we want to be different and we want to be seen positively. But we are all imperfect human beings, and therefore our organizations are also imperfect, right? So we have to be able to be open about our flaws and our shortcomings. It's easy to say and harder to do, but I think when you have employees as advocates who are able to speak in that sense and who are able to be open about what is great and what is maybe not so great and what is a work in progress in an organization, then I think you are evidencing authenticity in that example.
Okay. So when there might be also instances when a person would say authenticity to me is to be the real person, to be who I am. So I need, for me, an authentic culture would be that I would like to come to work in sweatpants or sweatshirt or something like that. So in that aspect of it, how would you really take this on, or what is the message given by the company?
Shall I start, Kaushalya, and you add on? Okay. So, Priyanganie, the example that you used, you know, you're saying, okay, Niasha's values are, you know, to be cool and calm and out, and that means for her to be an authentic self of her, she has to come to work in her sweatpants. And then Niasha works in an organization that's about ties and long sleeve shirts and, you know, business suit. So there's a disconnect. That doesn't make me inauthentic, that I am going to conform to the requirement of the organization, right? That doesn't make me inauthentic. I have a job to do. And in order to do my job, this is required of me. And I knew that full well when I took on that job. And it doesn't make my organization inauthentic because that is their value. So my point earlier also, Priyanganie, was that we need to be open about our values and we need to be mindful of the disconnect with what we communicate and with how we take in new employees.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because there seems to be a, what would you call, a dilution, especially with the millennials about it. For example, even about what they perceive. So for example, if I say I have a religion, I have political preferences, I'm a mom, but I believe authenticity includes the right to choose when and how I want to reveal something about myself in professional situations. Now here it's about the evidence of authenticity coming through in a person as well, right? So there are different conversations as well that are taking place. And this is where I just want you all to just give a few thoughts on that aspect of it, because psychological safety created in an authentic workplace is also a determining factor in why certain teams outperform another team also, and so on and so forth. You know, the psychological factor, as I said.
So here, what I would love to add is that authenticity comes in different frameworks. So when we are talking about employer branding authenticity, and when we are talking about the personal authenticity, it's two different. It's like, and when you are running a company, you have certain values, as Niasha said. So we have to align the whole employees with those values. And the same time, we need to maintain a discipline because we are attracting different level of diversified personalities. So if they have diversified authenticities, it's very hard you to manage an organization or a team. So that's why with the values we transparently declare to them, okay, these are the values, these are the norms that you have to perform, and we create certain discipline framework where everyone respect others and everyone can work in a one framework.
Okay.
So that is a little different from the being authentic for personally. That to me I am being authentic, and to employee branding authenticity is, for me, it's too different.
Oh, great.
100%. I just would like to add something there, Priyanganie.
Yes.
What Kaushalya is saying is 100% correct, but in reference to what you talked about, psychological safety, yes, I think it's paramount in the workplace if you want, supernormal performance from our people. That does not come from having 100%. Yes, if there's 100% match between the employees' values and the organization's values, great. But as Kaushalya said, we are never going to get there. I mean, maybe we will, I don't know, but it's a very, utopian state to get to. But what matters is that in an organization, if one of the values is to allow people to speak their mind, to be their authentic selves within the framework that the organization provides, then the psychological safety is created, right? I do not have any fear in sharing my opinion in a forum at the organization, let's say. So I am always at ease. I'm always going to bring my best to the table because I don't have to check myself. But there may be some of my ideas that don't fit with the values of the organization or the plans of the organization, and it will be a no to that. But I have to respect that. But no one is going to disrespect me for having those values or those ideas. And that is where psychological safety comes into being.
Okay. So that was obviously, I'm asking questions with the viewers in mind, and I think we have addressed those very, very salient points. And thank you very much, Kaushalya and Niasha. Just a quick break for those of you who have joined in. Yes, you have missed the starter. You have missed a really, really enticing starter. Welcome. We are in conversation with Kaushalya Kotuwage, who is Group Head of Human Resources and Sustainability, JAT Holdings, and Niasha Carolis, who is Director of HR and Sustainability, Kreeda at Mass Holdings. And as we continue, do use the opportunity to interact with us on chat with your questions. So once again, right, so we've cleared one area, which is about evidence of authenticity and so on and so forth. Right, now when we spoke right at the beginning, we spoke about an organization. How does an organization build a bridge between employer branding and authenticity? What are the departments that drive this building of bridges, and what resources do you use? Niasha, would you like to go for it?
I don't know if I will answer in terms of departments, Priyanganie. I think, like I said at the very start, the ownership of this employer brand and authenticity is something that comes down to everybody, every employee. Obviously, there will have to be leaders who drive it, but again, maybe in everyday, in today's world, it kind of defaults to HR, but actually, it's a leadership thing. Right? It is a leader's responsibility to ensure that people's well-being is being optimized And if people's well-being is being optimized, it is got to do with the employer's brand and values and how people are adjusting to that and working within that. And when we see the gaps and the discrepancies and the disconnects, then it is up to us as leaders, because our primary job as leaders, whatever the job we do, unless maybe you're a scientist in a lab and you're working with, potions and chemicals, generally, all of us in whatever job that we do, our first and foremost core job is to take care of our people so that they can perform the task. So in doing that, we have to call out those disconnects and discrepancies and gaps. And we have to drive as leadership collectively in the organization to eliminate that. So I don't see it as a thing of departments, but I think in reality it falls to corporate and HR and maybe marketing as well to help build the right brand, to make sure that it connects with the reality of the culture and the values and the mission and vision of the organization. But to be honest, I'm not saying that's not needed. It is needed, and the larger the organization, the more work there is to orchestrate and connect and synthesize and get the input of the employees. There's a lot of work to do there. But end of the day, it's about ensuring that we are keeping it real, like you said in your introduction, right? So the people who keep it real are the leadership.
Yeah, and I think that keeping it real also is about creating a space in which employees feel safe to be authentic as well. Don't you think so?
100%, yes.
Yeah. Kaushalya, your thoughts?
Yes. Regarding the building a bridge between employer branding and authenticity, I would love to add certain points in this way that when you look at employer branding, there is a bigger issue in current scenario where the people would differentiate the corporate branding and the employer branding in a separate way. That's the main issue. Okay. So I would say to bridge this gap, the first thing is you need to get employer branding, that corporate branding a part of your employer branding. Sorry, employer branding a part of your corporate branding. So that is the first thing that you have to do when you are bridging the employer branding with authenticity. The second one is you need to develop and communicate an employee value proposition to your that should be very transparent to the all levels of your organization. Yes. And also when you are keeping these policies transparent for your employees, that you have to walk the talk. If you are adhering to a certain policy, that you have to walk the talk. The second thing is when you look at certain organizations, I'm just taking the holistic view of the Sri Lankan organizations, not the giants with the SMEs I'm taking, and I'm just referring to the SMEs. When you are looking at the organization top layer, they should compromise the fundamental principles of employer-employee relationships. That is the first phase. The people lose the trust on the authenticity and the employer branding. The second one, for the middle layers, if the top layer is not compromising the fundamental principles of the employer-employee relationship, the middle layers and the line levels leaders can align with the cultural development and the change management. This is how you need to take the authenticity, align with the employer branding.
Yeah.
Right. And also there's the other thing that what you can practice, the practically that you can do is, if you take the employer branding, there are top 3 drivers in globally recognized. Those are, one is salary and benefits, second one is job security, the third one is the work-life balance. So you need to set certain standards, where the practical standards, I would say, where you can practice and perform inside your company. If your employee value proposition doesn't have the practical standards for those three top drivers, then your employee value proposition might have disagreements with the current employees.
That's true. That's true. And I agree with you, because in actuality, from what both of you have been saying, by leveraging these cultures or cultural values, and candidates have a chance to see what makes your company different from the rest, isn't it? All right. And also now, with more employees choosing to work from home, there is an authenticity factor that is brought in on them, on the onus on them, where the also in portraying themselves as ambassadors for the company. So is there something, I mean, especially now, because you know, we've been in lockdown and lots of people have had the choice of working from home, and then the authenticity of maintaining themselves within their residence structure or their home structure also means that there is a mirror reflection of this authenticity that is portrayed by the company to the employees as well. Any thoughts about that aspect of it that you'd like to share?
I'll just chip in here for a minute, Priyanganie. So I think the current situation have put employers on the spot a bit to change their way of working, their model of operating, and obviously when there's a government protocol in place, everyone has to work from home. But I think some organizations are taking the opportunity to look at this as a pivotal turning point on how they are going to operate in the future, and look at it as a more sustainable way of working. And sustainable in every sense, you know, less commuting, less impact on the planet, more time at home, more time for work-life balance, more effectiveness in the person when they're not wasting time commuting maybe or whatever. And when organizations are looking at it this way, yes, as you said, our true authentic self can get more exposed. So maybe for a person who is very inhibited in their organization, or for a person who feels that they cannot be themselves in their organization, now working from home might make it actually harder to hide under a false perception or a false self. And I think for employees, for some employees, it's a challenge, definitely. And organizations need to be sensitive, pick up the cues, take the cues they need to when it comes to their branding or their culture, but also look at how do they support employees in that struggle. And if there are a lot of them in an organization, then definitely we know there is a loveless marriage there in terms of authenticity and branding. But from my experiences so far, I can say there is a part for the organization to play in supporting employees to manage a very fine line between home and work now in this setup. But there's also a part for the employee to play in being authentic, but not allowing it to inhibit what they have to deliver for the organization. You know?
All right. Yes, yes.
So
it's a balancing act, of course. And I guess this, I mean, challenges are the outcome of a crisis. And crisis creates a platform and is a testing ground. So, which leads me to the next question. Within your individual scopes of these last 7 or 8 months, how would you enlighten the viewers on some experiences that you faced or challenges that you faced in relation to maintaining employer branding? Kaushalya, would you like to take that?
Yeah. If you look at the last 7 months, now this is where I would love to start with the risk management factors. So if you look at companies' business sustainability, whatever the so and so, no any company in the world look at these risks, because if you take the corona, the impact is higher, the likelihood or the occurrence is very less. So no one was bothered that since the likelihood is very less, so no one would look at these kind of things, and the employer brandings were not focusing on these risks. So what has happened, if you look at the Sri Lankan context, in Sri Lanka, the major thing is there are only few giants in the industries, and most of the companies are SMEs, or some companies are surviving in the industry. That is the reality. So when it comes to kind of this situation, the corona situation where the country is locked down, so we if you look at the last year 19, we had the East attack, but the world economy was stable. So in that case, not really all the industries are affected. Certain industries were affected where the exports are happen. So they were about to survive in the last year. This year, the world economy is down. So now we have given certain aspects for the employee branding. But when we talk about authenticity, now this period, we can't compare or we can't comment that company was not authentic to held up the employee branding status, right? So this is the argument that I'm bringing out, so you can comment. The thing is, if any company, now people are saying that, okay, the company was telling, okay, we take care of our employees properly, but some companies were there, they were suddenly took out the probationers out, and there was certain salary cuts going on. So I'm not telling that is bad, because the employee should understand how the business is running on. So first, the business has to survive and sustain at a certain level. Then only the thing is, we can't make everyone happy in this scenario. So if I come into my expertise, so we had in this case with my CEO and my top management, my exco, we got together and we discussed how to manage these situations. So first months, if you take first 2 months, we were telling, okay, this will be ending within 2 months, so we should not curtail anyone's salary. Okay, we will go on like this. But coming on, the things come into the worst scenarios where we are losing our harness of the business. So in that case, we did salary cuts. But one aspect we look at from my top management was, okay, not to let go any probationers, we'll keep it as much as possible with us. Okay, maybe we'll impose a 50% salary cut, but still we gave that job security that you are being with us, and we allow them, if you need to go out and seek any jobs, yes, you are really welcome.
Fair enough.
Yes, fair enough. So if you take, now I mentioned 3 top drivers. In those drivers, we just took the second one, the job security, and we maintained job security throughout this period. There was one case in my company. There was one case that we had to take out since the role was abandoned, and not abandoned. That we had a redundancy in that job role. So we took that employee out, but within five days we could able to find another replacement in an affiliated company. So up to now, we have not let go unless the poor performance or the people are not with the right attitude. We have not taken anyone out. So that is one thing that I am proud of, and my management is proud of. But I would say there are certain companies that they have to take out the people. I don't blame on those companies, because for the sake of another 99 or another 95 security, that they have to take out those people. Right, and they have to impose certain salary cutoffs. And in our company, in Jet Holdings, we have promised certain increments for employees. You know, when we are having some bargaining on the last year, okay, when people were trying to go out, and when we recognize that person as asset, so we promise, okay, you be here, we will take you to this level. So we promise on certain succession plannings and certain perks. So we were able to deliver that maybe later, maybe 3-4 months later, but we were able to deliver those promises as well. But we create some hope within our all employees that not to get worried, whatever the thing, okay, we brought down our bottom line levels, we brought down our expectations, and we marched for a reality strategic plan where we are going to drive and where we are going to fit in. According to that, we gave certain targets to the certain departments. So we asked at the moment of current scenario, the exports are zero. So we don't expect the revenue coming in from export. When we look at our business in Jet Holdings, we don't, those are not essentials. So in that case, so we motivated our local sales and local scenario. Okay, you have to run the show now. You are the leaders to take care of your other employees. So they took it. That is how you deliver, how you make it transparent for all employees to show. And the situation made. Now, if you take in any organization, there are conflict between departments and misunderstanding between departments. This Corona period gave a good understanding of humanity and how to work as a team.
That's
so I
true.
was very surprised to see a lot of teams were supporting, even that is not their role. They were asking how should we support you or the other teams, because they knew that the other teams are going to take care of the other employees who are not making profit in this pandemic situation. So this was a kind of very surprising scenario that I have experienced in my life of being a HR professional. And I think that Niasha has got more things to add.
That's a great turnaround to know as well, because I think humanly speaking, in every term, whatever difficulties people do go through, the crisis affects people, and people are the asset that we are talking about here, even where authenticity or employer branding is concerned. What about you, Niasha? How would you like to respond to this question on crisis creates a platform and is a testing ground? And what have your challenges been? And if you'd like to sort of express your thoughts there.
Sure. I think in a crisis, Priyanganie, if you are trying to judge an organization and how authentic they're bringing to their brand, we can't look at just what they do. We have to look at how they do whatever they propose to do. I mean, if I take the example that Kaushalya were using about job security, and that some organizations have pay cuts, some had redundancies, some had none. It's all depending on the organization's context. What are the risk factors that they are facing? How is the situation threatening their sustainability? And how are they looking to sustain the bigger picture? So if we as observers try to judge organizations without understanding that, we'd be making a big mistake. But let's just say an organization wanted to make redundancies or do pay cuts or whatever it is. We could draw something trying to understand from how they did it. You know, for example, when redundancies were done, were people looked after in how they were made redundant? Or when pay cuts were done, was it across the board? Did the senior workforce, senior management take a bigger cut than the junior workforce? I mean, then you can draw an insight into where are the values of that organization, and is it in line with what they say they are? So in this last 6 or 7 months, I would think the biggest challenge for an organization that wants to be authentic, and for leaders that want to be authentic and ensure that their organization is being authentic, is being vulnerable. In a crisis, we are all vulnerable. And are we ready to show that? Are we ready as individuals and organizations to expose our vulnerability? Because that is what makes us real. And that is when people begin, I mean, let's be honest, it can totally backfire too. There'll be a portion of people who think, oh God, you're not good enough because there's a flaw in you, or this organization is not good enough because it's not everything that I thought it would be. But we are not going to be everything to everyone. We already established that, right?
Yes.
In a crisis, everyone becomes vulnerable. Person, organization, whatever you want to call it. And the difficult thing is, how do we do that? How do we expose our vulnerability and work through that? How are we going to make that judgment that, it's a risky decision, but do we have what it takes to go through with exposing our vulnerability, explaining it, and sticking by who we are as individuals or as organizations.
Yeah, and on that point of vulnerability, on the point of crisis or challenges, everyone is looking for solutions. And we just spoke about the fact that it needs to cascade up towards, from the top. So who takes on the responsibility? What can leaders do to bring in a solution? And especially on that aspect of authenticity, are even the leaders displaying this on being vulnerable and also being able to bring in solutions?
I think communication is the key. Certainly as an individual in the last 6 to 7 months, it has been a real burden to make sure that we are communicating enough, often enough, to everyone that's necessary to be communicated to. Sometimes you're in a crisis, you're doing so much that communication takes a backseat. And that's when everything starts going wrong. So the leadership has to take the lead without a doubt. But I think an area that we have to focus on without fail is communication. We have to have consistent, constant, transparent communication to all stakeholders during such a crisis to ensure that we are always able to see the gaps, to see the issues, to react to them in time. And in doing that, if we are being transparent and timely and not contrived, then we will also be vulnerable and we will continue to be authentic. So for me, I think if I talked about one area or one solution or one way to tackle this challenge, it would be communication.
Okay, all right. So mindful of that we have inched on in time as well, but we do have time for Kaushalya. What are your thoughts on this? This would probably be the last and final.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Niasha. Where the communication at the moment like this, the current with the pandemic situation, this would be the ideal, the communication would be the ideal scenario to look at the organizations providing solutions. And at the same time, there is no particular responsible party. The top management is responsible, and not only top management, whoever the pillar managers are responsible as leaders to take this out. Because we see in employee branding and authenticity, the biggest ambassadors are the employees. So we need to communicate properly what are the decisions, what are the rationales that we have taken on these things, why the company is taking such decisions, what was the scenario, what is the sustainability, how the company works now. That is, they are to be communicated for all employees. Then only they will understand situations. Whatever said and done, there might be employees who are just suing on companies, or maybe showcasing the company is not good, or maybe they are just murmuring certain things. But if you have the right pool of people with the right mentality, they will understand, okay, to run a business, these are the decisions that they have taken. This might favorable for someone, this might not favorable some person. But as a holistic view to run the business, or as said, not to get into the vulnerable situations, these are the decisions that the management has taken. Maybe favorable, maybe not favorable, but to sustain in the industry that they have taken these kind of steps. And these are the way that the employer, the management should convey not only the curtailing steps, then how to improve with the situation fading out, how they are coming back, that they have to communicate the proper way. Okay, if we are going for these cuts, if we are reducing these kind of portions, okay, the perks, or maybe the corona is lifted, okay, we are coming by on these steps, we are coming up. So when there is a clear blueprint, I think employees are happy, employees should be happy, or maybe happy. And the same time, the authenticity was not curtailed. If you properly communicate the blueprint of the way forward by the management, then your authenticity is there.
Okay, right.
Because employee branding, finally I want to just mention, employee branding is not the essential thing at a pandemic situation. First, they need to survive, then they can look at again the employee branding. As Niasha said, up to now, all the organizations have built up their brand, or maybe the employee branding they have done. It is there. Even now they take a pause and they can establish again, or maybe they can work on the employee branding later. Now this is the time where they are going to survive.
Yes.
So in this scenario, what they have to do is they have to communicate to their biggest ambassadors, who are the employees, about the blueprint of this pandemic situation, how they are taking the company's perspective.
Yes, and the values and the core ethics that the company does evidence in their communication to their employees as well, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so on that note, we just have to say thank you and goodbye. From me, it has been a lovely meetup with Kaushalya and Niasha virtually, and thank you for all of those insights that you shared. The experiences were brilliant. The learning and the takeaways is absolutely multifold to, I'm sure, all of you viewers. So thank you for joining in. I'm Priyanganie Mushin, your host, signing off as I hand over to Evangelist Anton Thailand.
Thank you, Priyanganie.
Thank you, Priyanganie, for steering that conversation so well. Kaushalya and Niasha, once again, thank you for weighing in to this wonderful and delightful conversation this morning. As we rightly heard, every attempt at branding should be thought of as a contribution to the complex symbol, which is the brand image. Leaving you with these thoughts, a quick thank you to everyone who joined in this morning. I hope you've enjoyed this session. A thank you to H1, our technology partners, for the third season running. Coming up in the next, that and the other, season 2 with Varun. Do join in. Today they are discussing yet another topic. To some, it may be good, bad, and also controversial. Patience, attitude, and grit. Can they be learned? On that note, enjoy the rest of the day. Stay safe, stay productive.